You're about to watch smart people fall for spectacular lies. From a fake fossil rewriting textbooks to a nation panicking, we're counting 39 real hoaxes that fooled scientists and journalists. Piltdown Man, the Hitler Diaries, the Loch Ness surgeon photo. Stay to the end for the one controversy still dividing experts. Piltdown Man, the fake fossil that fooled science. For decades, a skull fragment rewrote human origins and misled textbooks. It surfaced near Piltdown, England, presented by antiquarian Charles Dawson. Experts like Arthur Smith Woodward praised it as the missing link. The jaw looked ape-like, the cranium strangely modern and thick. Close study lagged while prestige and nationalism did much heavy lifting. Later chemical tests showed staining, filed teeth, and mismatched bones. The jaw came from an orangutan, the skull from a human. Careers were dented, timelines redrawn, and confidence took a careful turn. If a trophy fossil looks perfect, it usually isn't. War of the Worlds radio. Panic fooled a nation. Phones jammed, highways clogged, and police stations reported strange calls. It happened after Orson Welles broadcast a faux Martian invasion. The show used news bulletin style to mimic live reporting. Some listeners joined midway, missed disclaimers, and filled in terrifying blanks. Newspapers exaggerated chaos, partly to undercut rising radio competition. Surveys later suggested the panic wasn't nationwide, but pockets happened. Still, families packed cars, churches opened, and rumors traveled faster. It became a lesson in format power and audience expectations. A radio play proved tone can outweigh facts for an hour. The Hitler Diaries hoax embarrassed historians and media. Prestige outlets announced Treasure, the private diaries of Adolf Hitler. They were acquired by a German magazine after secretive negotiations. Handwriting experts and historians were rushed, dazzled, or misled by presentation. Soon, forensic tests exposed fresh chemicals and clumsy historical inconsistencies. The forger, Konrad Kujau, had long trafficked in Nazi memorabilia. Publishers raced for scoops, and skepticism arrived late to work. Public excitement turned fast into lawsuits, apologies, and reputational bruises. The episode showed credentials crumble when deadlines roar and exclusives glimmer. Ink dries quickly. Patience verifies slower, but more reliably. The Loch Ness surgeon's photo was a toy submarine. For years, that long-necked silhouette defined the Loch Ness mystery. The image came from a London surgeon, Robert Kenneth Wilson. It looked like a plesiosaur peeking from Scottish water, calm. Decades later, Christian Sperling described a staged model on a submarine. The monster was a small head fixed to a toy. Waves made the model seem massive, scale tricks doing overtime. Investors, tourists, and tabloids happily filled the gaps with wonder. Skeptics measured ripples and shoreline, and the illusion unraveled slowly. A famous photo shrank to a teacup-sized prank with shadows. The Great Moon Hoax of 1835 sold lunar unicorns. Newspapers breathlessly reported bat-winged people and lunar forests thriving. They credited a respected astronomer and a powerful new telescope. Readers imagined cities on the moon, mapped by careful observers. It was actually a satirical series designed to boost circulation. Descriptions included crystal temples, strange beavers, and dazzling sapphire lakes. Editors doubled down as sales soared, then quietly moved on. Critics later dissected the prose and the scientific impossibilities, yet the prints and etchings traveled, keeping the fantasy stubbornly alive. When telescopes promise miracles, check the subscription pitch underneath. The Cottingley Fairies. Photographs tricked even Arthur Conan Doyle. Two girls in Yorkshire showed crisp pictures of dancing fairies. Francis Griffiths and Elsie Wright staged scenes with paper cutouts outdoors. Lighting, perspective, and the stiff poses masked the cardboard truth. Spiritualists embraced the photos. Skeptics couldn't inspect the original plates. Arthur Conan Doyle championed them as proof of unseen realms. Years later, the cousins described how they posed the figures. They disagreed about one image possibly being real, muddying confessions. Meanwhile, the photos shaped debates about hope, grief, and wishful seeing. Sometimes the longing for magic overpowers the lens itself. The Cardiff Giant, America's greatest petrified man hoax. A massive stone giant was discovered on a New York farm. Crowds paid to view what looked like a fossilized human. The creator, George Hull, commissioned a carved figure from gypsum. He buried it, waited, then staged a dramatic digging day. Local businessmen quickly built a circus around the find. P.T. Barnum even made a rival copy nearby. Scholars argued loudly, while ticket takers smiled and counted receipts. Eventually, chisel marks, fresh tool scratches, and admissions ended debate. A planted statue grew into a traveling business lesson overnight. P.T. Barnum's Fiji mermaid shocked Victorian audiences. Visitors swore they saw a preserved mermaid behind glass. The figure combined a monkey torso and a fishtail. Barnum promoted it with posters, pamphlets, and clever planted stories. Sailors' yarns met showman's hype, and curiosity did the rest. Anatomists called it stitched taxidermy. Crowds still lined up anyway. The exhibit hopped venues, reinventing itself with fresh billings regularly. Rival showmen launched their own mermaids to ride the wave. In the end, it was wires, varnish, and imagination. The sea's mysteries proved highly portable on a dry stage. BBC's Swiss spaghetti harvest hoax duped TV viewers. A straight-faced news program showed families picking spaghetti from trees. Narrators described a bumper crop after a mild European winter. Cameras followed careful harvesting, and pasta being dried in baskets. Viewers called asking how to grow their own spaghetti plants. Editors smirked because this aired on April Fool's Day. The segment used documentary style and calm narration to sell it. No CGI, just staging, wardrobe, and well-chosen orchard locations. The joke became legend, replayed as a masterclass in tone. Serious voices can make even noodles sound agricultural and inevitable. The mechanical Turk chess robot hid a human master quartz, and aristocrats watched an automaton beat accomplished chess players. The machine, called the Turk, toured Europe and America widely. Its operator opened doors, pulled drawers, and showed empty compartments. Hidden inside, a contortionist master moved gears and magnets precisely. The ruse changed helpers over decades, keeping secrets surprisingly intact. Edgar Allan Poe analyzed the act, suspecting a concealed human. Demonstrations included knights tours and cunning endgames to wow crowds. Fires, sales, and repairs turned the automaton into a traveling myth. When machinery looks brilliant, check where a human could hide. The Dreadnought Hoax. Pranksters fooled the Royal Navy. A group in costume toured a flagship as foreign royalty. Horace de Vere Cole organized it with friends, including Virginia Woolf. They wore beards, robes, and dark makeup to pass as dignitaries. Officers saluted, bands played, and translators fluttered with formalities throughout. The visitors spoke invented words like bunga bunga, delighting themselves. A staged telegram later thanked the Navy for their hospitality. Newspapers printed photos, and the Admiralty blushed through official statements. The prank sparked debates about protocol, prejudice, and theater at sea. Security tightened. The punchline sailed longer than the ship did. The Sokol Hoax. Nonsense paper accepted by journal. A physics professor submitted a jargon-heavy paper to test standards. The article flattered editors while contradicting basic scientific reasoning repeatedly. It cited fashionable theorists and sprinkled equations like decorative confetti. A cultural studies journal published it, then learned it was intentional satire. The author, Alan Sokol, revealed the experiment immediately after publication. Scholars argued about peer review, boundaries, and interdisciplinary blind spots. Some saw arrogance, Others saw a needed stress test publicly. Institutions responded with statements, seminars, and promises of tighter review. A prank paper triggered a long seminar about reading carefully. Crop circle's confession. Artists fooled scientists for years. Elegant rings appeared overnight in fields across southern England. Farmers woke to perfect arcs stamped into wheat and barley. UFO explanations spread as photographers chased patterns at sunrise. Two artists, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley, eventually described their methods. They used ropes, boards, and sightlines to plan elaborate designs. Copycats escalated complexity, adding nodes, spirals, and fractal-like paths. Researchers split into believers, skeptics, and cautious middle-ground surveyors. Nighttime stakeouts caught teams working with headlamps and quiet laughter. It proved geometry plus farmland equals irresistible late-night storytelling canvases. Balloon Boy, a televised rescue staged for publicity. Helicopters tracked a silver balloon over Colorado plains for hours. Authorities feared a child was inside, drifting toward open sky. Newsrooms ran split screens as viewers held their breath. The balloon landed empty. The child was later found safe. Investigators determined the stunt was engineered for media attention. Parents gave shifting stories that unraveled under basic questioning. Court proceedings followed, with fines, probation, and public condemnation issued. The boy's hesitant interview helped audiences connect the suspicious dots. A shiny balloon floated, but the truth never really did. Alien autopsy film, 1995. Evidence later admitted fake. Grainy footage surfaced showing surgeons dissecting an alleged extraterrestrial body. The film's promoter described military origins and a recovered crash site. Props, surgical motions, and camera choices looked half-plausible on purpose. Special effects artists spotted latex seams and inconsistent anatomy quickly. Years later, the producer admitted a staged reconstruction using models. He suggested fragments of older footage inspired the recreation claims. Collectors, networks, and tabloids had already ridden the spectacle widely. Artifacts from production surfaced, including molds and written production notes. A sci-fi rumor turned into a behind-the-scenes tour. Operation Fortitude's Phantom Army fooled Nazi intelligence. Inflatable tanks, fake radio chatter, and staged camps filled England. Allied planners built a phantom force poised opposite Pas-de-Calais. Real commanders lent names to ghost units, deepening the ruse. Double agents fed reports that matched aerial photographs perfectly. Meanwhile, the real invasion assembled for Normandy under tighter secrecy. Recon flights photographed dummy armor that moved when needed. The deception delayed enemy divisions during crucial early invasion days. Signals teams rehearsed traffic patterns like actors learning dialogue. A rubber tank helped open a very real beachhead. Operation Mincemeat's floating corpse deceived the Axis. A body washed ashore carrying documents about Mediterranean invasions. British intelligence built the identity, wallet, and personal letters carefully. The corpse suggested Allied attacks would target Greece and Sardinia soon. German analysts reviewed the papers and passed them up chain. Meanwhile, Sicily remained the actual invasion goal under preparation. Spies watched for reactions, measuring ship movements and defensive shifts. The deception nudged resources away from the true landing site. Afterward, planners gathered evidence that the bait had been swallowed. One briefcase quietly bent strategy across an entire sea. Han van Meegeren's fake Vermeers fooled Goering. A struggling Dutch painter began forging works in Old Master style. He studied pigments, primers, and baking techniques to age canvases. Patrons and experts linked the paintings to Johannes Vermeer confidently. During wartime, a top Nazi official acquired one prized canvas. After the war, Meegeren faced charges for collaborating through art sales. He confessed to forgery in open court to avoid treason. Examiners cracked resin layers and found modern materials beneath glazes. Public opinion shifted, oddly celebrating his audacity and technical cunning. A counterfeit Vermeer traded a death penalty for notoriety. Elmire de Hory, forger who fooled museums worldwide. Galleries bought paintings attributed to several famous modern artists. Elmire de Hory produced them with practiced speed and flair. Dealers laundered provenance through private sales and vague collections. Collectors loved the signatures. Authentication lagged behind glossy brochures. When questions mounted, Elmire's circle spun stories about mysterious owners. Documentary crews later filmed him drawing with confident, fluid lines. Investigations reached associates who placed works in multiple countries. Civil suits and criminal charges tangled with overlapping jurisdictions often. In the end, style traveled faster than paperwork could chase. Knoedler Gallery's $80 million forgery ring duped collectors. A venerable New York gallery sold newly discovered masterworks for years. Pieces were linked to abstract expressionists with thin paper trails. The supplier, Glafira Rosales, brought paintings from a secret collector. Experts split, some praising brushwork while others flagged odd materials. Scientific tests later found modern pigments inconsistent with claimed dates. The works traced back to a little-known painter making imitations. Lawsuits followed, and the gallery ultimately closed under heavy scrutiny. Emails, invoices, and studio materials mapped the network in detail. A blue-chip address masked an off-white provenance from the start. Mary Toft's rabbit births deceived Britain's royal physicians. Midwives reported a woman delivering animal parts during examinations. Mary Toft from Surrey became a sensation in London salons. A royal surgeon, Nathaniel St. Andre, investigated with growing fascination. He claimed she birthed rabbits, collecting specimens for skeptical colleagues. Anatomists demanded controls, and inconsistencies piled up quickly afterward. Under pressure, Toft admitted inserting parts to fake deliveries. Handlers and relatives likely helped stage the grisly performances secretly. Crowds turned on physicians who endorsed the impossible too quickly. A medical craze ended with a confession and red faces. William Mumler's spirit photography fooled the Victorians. Clients posed solemnly, and ghostly relatives appeared beside them. Mumler's portraits seemed to capture lingering souls in soft light. He used double exposures and clever retouching in the darkroom. Famous sitters visited, lending credibility to his growing reputation. Skeptics demanded controls, and legal charges eventually followed publicly. Court cases struggled to prove fraud without technical demonstrations available. Competitors replicated the effect, weakening Mumler's mystique with workshops. Grief and technology made a potent blend for hopeful customers. A faint figure in silver nitrate carried heavy emotions. Modigliani Canal Heads prank humiliated art critics. Dredgers in Italy pulled lost sculptures from a canal bed. The heads looked like early experiments by Amedeo Modigliani himself. Experts weighed in, praising rough edges and modernist energy loudly. Students later confessed to carving them with drills and pumice. They deliberately floated the pieces where dredging would find them. Television crews filmed the reveal, amplifying the collective embarrassment. Museums reconsidered how context shapes the reading of chisel marks. The prank worked because discovery felt perfectly cinematic and timed. A muddy canal delivered a masterclass in confirmation bias. Archaeoraptor, National Geographic's missing link, fossil fraud. A fossil arrived combining a bird-like body and lizard-like tail. It seemed to bridge dinosaurs and early birds brilliantly at first. Dealers sourced it from China with murky excavation details. CT scans later showed it was a composite of specimens. Fragments from different animals had been glued together skillfully. Editors and scientists retracted claims and published corrections afterward. Meanwhile, legitimate feathered dinosaurs from that region remained revolutionary discoveries. The scandal spotlighted fossil smuggling and pressures around big headlines. A hybrid forgery briefly perched on science's shoulder, then fell. Tazaday, Stone Age tribe exposed as a fabrication. Reports described an isolated tribe living without metal or clothes. Officials in the Philippines showcased the Tazaday to visiting journalists. Guides controlled access, and translators shaped every conversation carefully. Later investigators found manufactured caves and modern tools hidden nearby. Some participants claimed coercion and staging under political pressure. Scholars debated whether the group existed, but not as portrayed. The villagers' later lives looked far from the original narrative. Decades of argument left a cautionary tale about anthropological theater. When discovery requires chaperones, skepticism should probably ride along too. The Berners Street hoax gridlocked London with fake deliveries. One morning, countless wagons and tradesmen jammed a narrow street. They all had orders addressed to a single, surprised resident. Prankster Theodore Hook had mailed requests from different shops beforehand. Chimney sweeps, piano movers, and doctors all arrived simultaneously there. Police struggled to clear carts as crowds gathered, laughing loudly. Newspapers reported the spectacle, naming Hook as the likely culprit. The target watched chaos blossom from doorstep to distant corners. Merchants tallied losses, while the city learned a logistical lesson. A handful of letters paralyzed a neighborhood for hours. The lying stones of Dr. Beringer fooled academia. A professor collected fossils etched with insects, birds, even words. They looked miraculous, implying nature stamped messages in limestone. Colleagues admired his growing collection and detailed drawings considerably. Unknown to him, two rivals had planted carved stones deliberately. He published a book praising them as divine signatures publicly. Then new fossils appeared with his name carved mockingly inside. Humiliation forced him to reassess methods and colleagues' intentions harshly. Many stones were later destroyed, though some survived in museums. A feud turned into geology's most awkward practical joke. H.L. Mencken's bathtub history hoax went mainstream. A satirist wrote a playful essay about America's first bathtubs. He filled it with dates, ordinances, and moral panics colorfully. Readers and editors repeated details as if they were solid history. Reprints spread far beyond the original humor column's audience quickly. Even years later, letters asked for sources and verification constantly. Mencken admitted the joke, but the tale kept circulating widely. People loved the story because it fit cultural stereotypes neatly. Textbooks and speeches echoed it long after retractions appeared. A bathtub splashed louder than the footnotes could ever mop. Project Alpha. Magicians fooled a parapsychology laboratory. Two young performers tested a research lab's controls for months. They claimed psychic abilities during spoon-bending and mind-reading experiments inside. Researchers logged positive results without catching the sleight-of-hand methods used. James Randi coordinated the test and demanded tighter protocols publicly. When revealed, the lab faced questions about blinding and oversight. Replications under stricter conditions made the miracles vanish on cue. Participants later demonstrated the tricks at conferences and on television. The project didn't disprove everything paranormal, but it challenged procedures. Good magic thrives where good methodology takes coffee breaks. The Carlos hoax. Fake channeler pranked Australian TV. A calm channeler introduced an ancient entity named Carlos confidently. Television programs booked him for interviews and dramatic outdoor segments. Backstory included lost records, mystical training, and global travels claimed. Producers filmed near landmarks as crowds watched storms roll in. Behind the scenes, James Randi coached the performance and narrative. Reporters skipped verification steps, focusing on access and visual drama. Later, the team revealed the ruse and explained every tactic. Stations aired mea culpas while viewers rewatched the staged moments. A media diet of vibes proved dangerously filling that week. Ghostwatch, BBC's 1992 mockumentary, terrified real viewers. A lifestyle special investigated a haunted house on Halloween night. Presenters used their real names, lending everything unsettling credibility immediately. Phone lines flickered with calls as strange noises escalated steadily. Camera pans caught shadows, bangs, and a lurking figure repeatedly. The show pre-recorded scares, but hid that detail cleverly on screen. After broadcast, complaints poured in about panic and sleepless children. Producers defended the format, while regulators weighed viewer expectations carefully. Cast and crew later described backlash that lasted for years. Television learned faux live horror can feel far too real. The Blair Witch hype made fiction feel documentary real. Missing person flyers and a bare-bones website seeded intense speculation. Filmmakers released interviews pretending the students were genuinely missing. Handheld footage delivered nausea, fear, and plausible bickering between friends. Marketing blurred lines, leaving audiences debating what was staged. Festivals premiered the film with minimal context, fueling rumors intentionally. Viewers whispered about real tapes recovered from a forest. Later, actors emerged, alive, laughing, and still a little shaken. The myth outpaced the movie for months after release. A tiny budget bought the world's most profitable campfire story. Paul McCartney is dead, the Beatles' biggest urban legend. Fans scoured album covers for hidden hints and funeral symbolism. Clues included bare feet, license plates, and reversed audio fragments. Radio hosts compiled evidence, and dorm rooms became detective bureaus. The band stayed coy, sometimes winking, mostly rolling their eyes. Tourists photographed crosswalks and magnified sleeve art for years. Some interviews teased the rumor, accidentally giving it fresh oxygen. Paul eventually joked about it, which didn't help much. Bootleggers sold proof records and pamphlets in college towns everywhere. A rumor solved nothing, but sold everything around it. Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot film still divides believers and skeptics. A short clip shows a large figure striding through woodland. Shot near Bluff Creek, the footage shakes and zooms urgently. The subject turns mid-stride, glancing back with a swinging arm. Supporters cite muscle movement and proportion as persuasive details. Critics argue suit seams, gait inconsistencies, and staging logistics instead. Alleged participants surfaced, claiming involvement in a costumed hoax occasionally. Physical evidence remained disputed, from footprints to hair samples reviewed. Documentaries revisited the site with stabilized frames and analysis repeatedly. A few seconds of film built a 50-year campfire argument. Bonsai kitten website outrage sparked animal welfare investigations. An online page claimed kittens were grown inside glass jars. Photos showed staged instructions and stylized silhouettes of trapped animals. University servers and pranksters were rumored to host the site. Authorities received complaints, calls, and petitions from outraged readers globally. Investigators determined it was satire, not actual animal cruelty instructions. Still, the imagery circulated, detaching from its original context quickly. Service providers debated free speech and hosting responsibilities under pressure. Even after takedowns, screenshots kept the panic percolating elsewhere. Satire plus shock proved very hard to throttle completely. Wikipedia's Jar Edo Wen's fake entry survived 9 years. A short article described an obscure deity from Australia's traditions. The entry sat quietly, gathering links and mirror copies slowly. Editors skimmed it, some assuming someone else had verified sources. Eventually, volunteers traced citations and found circular references everywhere. The name's origin pointed to a prankster's rearranged letters cleverly. Cleanup teams removed the page and notified other sites promptly. Meanwhile, the phrase had spread into trivia and quizzes widely. Lessons emerged about citation chains and sleepy maintenance on platforms. A tiny stub became a marathon for vigilant editors. N-rays, illusionary physics fooled even careful experimenters. Researchers reported a new radiation that improved vision in darkness. They claimed to see faint glows enhanced by aluminum prisms. Dozens of labs reproduced effects using subjective brightness estimates, mostly. An outsider visited and secretly removed a key prism mid-test. Reported signals continued unchanged, exposing expectation as the hidden variable. Publications retracted findings, and equipment gathered dust in cupboards. The episode became a textbook example of confirmation bias under pressure. Training changed, stressing blind tests and robust measurement standards afterward. Sometimes the ghost in the machine is your own eyes. Calavera's skull hoax misled early American anthropologists. Miners uncovered a human skull deep beneath ancient volcanic layers. Some scholars used it to argue extreme human antiquity locally. The story fit regional pride and lively frontier museum circuits. Skeptics questioned the context and chain of custody immediately. Later analyses indicated a more recent skull planted in deposits. Collectors and showmen had mixed science with spectacle once again. Museums revised exhibits and labels, tempering earlier dramatic claims substantially. The case joined a catalog of cautionary digs and dates. Deep doesn't always mean old when people carry shovels. Jack the Ripper diary forgery fooled true crime enthusiasts. A Victorian diary surfaced, naming James Maybrick as the killer. Pages contained lurid details matching headlines and rumored clues selectively. Publishers rolled out facsimiles and TV specials with breathless pacing. Handwriting experts disagreed, and ink dating raised awkward questions quickly. Provenance shifted, with stories of attics, scrapbooks, and secret finds. Some believers assembled timelines that accommodated the diary's claims. Skeptics highlighted anachronisms and copycat phrasing from later sources. Debates continue at conferences, in books, and on message boards. A leather cover still hides a very modern argument.